Right now, I mean, nearly half the adult population
Yeah.
is carrying around this, like, low-grade chronic stress every single day.
Yeah, it really is everywhere.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with the economy or politics or, their physical health.
You're right.
It is entirely about trying to find a date.
Exactly. It's a massive invisible weight.
We are basically in the middle of a quantifiable downturn in romantic enthusiasm. Like, sociologists have literally dubbed it the crush recession.
The crush recession.
Wow.
It's such a striking term.
It really is. And if you're listening to this, you almost certainly know the exact feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
The absolute exhaustion of opening an app, sending a message into the void, maybe getting a half-hearted response.
All right, if you even get a response.
Exactly. And then doing it all over again until you just want to, throw your phone into a river.
It is a profound collective burnout. I mean, we have taken the most organic, emotionally delicate human experience, which is falling in love, and we've filtered it through this digitized, gamified, high-friction gauntlet.
Yeah, a gauntlet is the perfect word for it.
And it is breaking people down. It really is.
But here's the crazy part. And this is the paradox we're going to be unpacking today.
I love this part.
While everyone is complaining that modern dating is just a complete dumpster fire and, declaring the death of romance, the underlying demographic and psychological data actually shows something entirely different.
It's super counterintuitive.
Completely. Underneath all the fatigue, singles are quietly orchestrating what might actually be the biggest, most fundamental sociological revolution in how human beings connect in modern history.
It's huge.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are exploring the rapidly evolving, incredibly messy, but ultimately hopeful world of modern courtship in 2026.
It's a fascinating landscape right now.
We're going to decode the psychological and societal shifts that are just completely transforming romance. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Starting with the pathology of the problem itself. Let's look at the dark ages of digital romance and what we are really talking about when we say swipe fatigue.
Right. So to understand the revolution, you really first have to rigorously define the pathology of what's happening right now in this era of uncertified dating.
Uncertified dating, yeah.
The reality on the ground is incredibly grim, and
Right.
it's affecting people on a deeply neurobiological level.
Right. It's not just in their heads.
Exactly. We mentioned the crush recession, and it operates very much like a literal economic recession.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, it's a quantifiable downturn in market participation. People are just losing their drive to even try anymore.
They're just opting out.
Yes. And if you look at the recent demographic data, it paints a picture of just collective misery.
Yeah, I was looking at that. It's wild.
It is. Something like 47% of U.S. adults report being actively stressed about their love lives.
Almost half. That is a staggering number of people just walking around with elevated cortisol levels because of romance.
It really is.
And what I found so compelling when looking at this data is that this stress isn't uniform at all.
No, not at all.
There is this deeply painful gender divide in how this misery actually manifests in the real world.
Yes. The experience is totally polarized.
Right. So you have this situation where 54% of women say they feel totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of messages they receive.
Which is the classic choice overload phenomenon.
Choice overload.
Right. In behavioral economics, if you present a consumer with, say, 50 types of jam at the grocery store.
Oh, I know this study. The jam study.
Exactly. They become paralyzed and end up buying nothing. They just walk away.
Right. Because making the decision is too stressful.
Yes. And when you apply that to human beings, the paralysis is magnified exponentially by the emotional weight.
Oh, yeah. Rejecting a jam is easy. Rejecting a person is hard.
Exactly. Having to sift through, evaluate, and inevitably reject dozens of real people a week, it creates an incredible cognitive burden.
And then on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, you have the male experience.
Right.
The numbers show that 64% of men report feeling deeply insecure about a total lack of messages.
It's the inverse problem.
They are sending out these bids for connection and getting absolute crushing silence in return.
Yeah.
So you have one group drowning in noise, feeling sort of dehumanized because they are just a target for endless, low-effort messages.
Right. They feel like prey almost.
Exactly. And another group starving in silence, feeling dehumanized because they feel completely invisible.
It's odd.
Both sides are absolutely miserable, just in completely different ways.
And the tragic part is when those two groups finally do connect, The infrastructure of the interaction is inherently fragile.
Because of the apps.
Yeah, they face ghosting, they face breadcrumbing, and they face the emotional toll of what clinical psychologists are now calling dating a hologram.
Oh, man. That phrase stopped me in my tracks when I read the source material. Dating a hologram.
It's a powerful image.
Explain exactly what that feels like, because I think basically everyone listening has experienced this without having a name for it.
Right, so dating a hologram is what happens when the majority of your early courtship takes place via text or, asynchronous messaging.
Just staring at a screen.
Exactly. You aren't interacting with a three-dimensional human being.
No.
You are interacting with a highly curated digital profile and a series of blue or green text bubbles.
Right.
And because the human brain just absolutely abhors a vacuum, it takes those sparse text bubbles and it fills in the blanks.
It makes assumptions.
Huge assumptions. You project all of your hopes, your anxieties, your desired traits, and your expectations onto this person you barely know.
Wow.
You basically construct an entire personality for them in your head.
So you fall in love with the avatar you created in your own imagination.
And exactly. And when you finally meet them in person or when they do something that shatters that projection,
Which they inevitably will.
always, the disappointment is crushing.
Because they're just a normal person.
Right. You weren't rejected by a real person, and you didn't lose a real connection. You lost the hologram.
Wow.
But to truly understand why we put ourselves through this, why we endure the crush recession and these holograms, we have to look at the neurobiology.
Okay, let's get into the brain science.
The architecture of these digital platforms is not accidental. The endless swiping mechanism intentionally mimics a slot machine.
It's pure gamification.
Pure gamification.
And we've talked about gamification in other areas like fitness trackers or, language learning apps.
Right, where it's helpful.
Yeah. But applying it to human intimacy feels infinitely more dangerous.
It is incredibly dangerous because of the specific psychological principle it leverages. It's called intermittent variable reinforcement.
Intermittent variable reinforcement.
When you pull the lever of a slot machine, you don't win every time.
No.
Because if you won every time, it would just be a job and you'd get bored.
Right, you just collect your coins and go home.
Exactly. But if you never won, you'd walk away in frustration.
True.
So you win just enough at totally unpredictable intervals to keep you pulling the lever.
Right.
In the human brain, this unpredictability activates the ventral tegmental area, or the VTA.
The VTA, that's deep in the primal part of the brain, right?
Yeah, very deep. It's part of your core reward circuitry.
Okay.
When you swipe right on a screen and you don't know if it's going to be a match, your VTA starts firing.
Anticipation.
Yes. When a match does happen, it delivers a massive, unpredictable hit of dopamine.
So it's not even about the person anymore.
No.
It's about the little ding on your phone. You're getting a neurochemical reward just for the notification.
Exactly. The dopamine hit actually peaks in the anticipation of the reward, not the reward itself.
Wow, so the swiping is the drug.
So the act of swiping becomes highly addictive. But when you place this slot machine dynamic into the context of dating...
Which is so vulnerable.
Exactly. It stops being a simple behavioral quirk and it starts activating deep, latent psychological triggers.
Which brings us to the really dark stuff.
Yes. This is where we see the emergence of what clinical psychologists point to as the abandonment schema.
Yeah, this is the part of our research that honestly felt like looking into a mirror.
It's very confronting.
I want to spend some real time here because I think understanding this schema unlocks why so many people feel totally trapped.
I agree.
What is an abandonment schema and how does the app weaponize it against us?
So to put it in clinical terms, an abandonment schema is a deeply ingrained, often unconscious belief, usually formed in early childhood, that the people you care about are unreliable.
Like they're going to leave.
Exactly. That they will inevitably leave you or will ultimately just be emotionally unavailable to you.
Okay.
And the thing is, even if you consider yourself a secure, functional adult, modern dating platforms are practically designed in a lab to trigger this specific vulnerability.
That is so insidious. So walk me through how that actually looks in practice for someone, just sitting on their couch on a Tuesday night.
Okay, let's say someone with an active abandonment schema gets a match.
Great. Dopamine hit.
Right. They have a great text exchange.
Things are going well.
Then the other person goes quiet for 24 hours. Now, to a perfectly regulated nervous system, that silence might just mean the other person is busy with work, they had a busy Tuesday.
Sure, reasonable.
But to someone with an abandonment schema, That 24-hour silence is interpreted as a profound psychological threat.
It's not just they're busy, it's they hate me.
It triggers a literal microtrauma of abandonment. Their cortisol levels spike, their chest might literally tighten up.
Physical symptoms.
Yes. The app has now induced a state of acute anxiety.
And what do they do to soothe that anxiety?
They open the app again.
That is the insidious loop.
That's the loop. Swiping ceases to be about genuinely finding a long-term partner.
Right.
It mutates into this frantic, obsessive compulsion to stave off feelings of emptiness and rejection.
You just desperately need a hit to feel okay.
You frantically swipe to find a new match just to prove to your nervous system that you are still desirable, that you aren't completely alone in the world.
Wow.
The platform triggers your anxiety and then presents itself as the only available pacifier for that exact same anxiety.
Okay, I hear all of this neurobiology, but I have to, push back a little on blaming the technology itself here.
Okay, fair enough.
Because as humans, we do have agency. We aren't just lab rats.
Sure.
Let's compare this endless swiping to opening a refrigerator.
I like this analogy.
You know that feeling when you're hungry? You open the fridge and there's just nothing good to eat. Just some old mustard and like a wilted carrot.
A classic experience.
Right. You close it, you walk away. Maybe 2 minutes later, driven by some irrational hope, you open it again, hoping new food has miraculously appeared.
Right. It's a classic universal behavioral loop. We seek sustenance where we have found it before.
Yes, but we eventually stop opening the fridge.
We do.
After the third or fourth time, our rational brain kicks in and says, look, there is no food here. We need to go to the store or we need to just be hungry.
Right.
We stop the behavior because the reality of the empty fridge overrides the impulse.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going.
So my question is, why do our brains continuously fall for this digital dating trap when it is so demonstrably causing us misery?
It's a great question.
I mean, it lowers our self-esteem. It creates what sociologists are calling situational anxiety. Why don't we just close the digital fridge?
Because the digital fridge is fundamentally different from the physical fridge in one crucial way.
Which is?
The digital dating pool is infinite.
Oh.
When you look in your kitchen, you can visually confirm the physical limits of the space. You know there is no hidden compartment of food behind the mustard.
Right, it is what it is.
But the app provides the illusion of infinite abundance.
There's always someone else.
There is always the very real possibility that the very next swipe, just one more flick of the thumb, could be the person who changes the entire trajectory of your life.
Wow. So the hope never dies. There's never a concrete bottom to the well.
Exactly. And that infinite potential is what allows the intermittent reinforcement to completely override your logical realization that the process is hurting you.
Your logic just gets bypassed.
Totally. Your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, the part responsible for rational, long-term decision-making, knows that swiping for 3 hours is making you depressed.
Yeah, feels terrible.
It wants to stop. But the dopamine loop hijacks that CEO. The algorithm bypasses your logic and taps directly into your primitive survival and reward systems.
So you're literally fighting your own survival instinct.
You keep opening the app because your brain is treating connection as a survival necessity, and the app is presenting itself as the only source of water in the desert.
Even if the water is making you sick.
Even if the water is making you sick.
So we're essentially chemically bound to a system that is designed to keep us slightly dissatisfied and constantly searching.
That's the business model.
That is incredibly bleak. I mean, if we stop the story there, it sounds like humanity is just doomed to swipe itself into oblivion.
If we stopped there, yes, it would be a tragedy.
Right.
But human beings are remarkably adaptable.
Thank goodness.
And what we are seeing in 2026 is that this widespread burnout, this absolute bone-deep exhaustion with the gamification of human intimacy, is exactly what has catalyzed a massive behavioral shift.
People are fighting back.
They are. Daters are waking up, they are recognizing the pathology of the system, and they are actively choosing to abandon the superficial, ambiguous talking stage.
The talking stage is dead.
It's dying rapidly. They are entering what researchers are calling the era of radical intentionality.
And this is where the story gets really fascinating. Because singles aren't just giving up and accepting the misery.
No.
They aren't throwing away their phones and moving to the woods, right?
Well, some might, but mostly no.
They're actively reclaiming their agency and rewriting the rules of engagement.
Exactly.
When you look at the behavioral data from this year, there's a whole new strategic playbook that daters are using to protect themselves. Let's talk about how people are actually executing this radical intentionality in their day-to-day lives.
Yes. So the most prominent tactic emerging from this shift is a behavior called hardballing.
Hardballing, like
Uh,
playing hardball in a business negotiation.
Exactly like that.
That sounds incredibly intense for a romantic context. How does that actually work on a Tuesday night coffee date?
It is intense by historical standards, but it's a necessary adaptation to an environment of infinite choice.
Okay, tell me more.
Hardballing is the practice of stating your non-negotiable expectations immediately.
Immediately.
We aren't talking about waiting for the third or fourth date to have the "what are we doing here" conversation.
Right.
People are having this conversation within the first 10 minutes of meeting, or even placing these boundaries explicitly in their profile prompts before a single message is exchanged.
So it's radical, blunt transparency.
Exactly.
It's saying, I want to be married in 2 years, or I definitely do not want children. Or on the other end, I am only looking for something casual and have zero intention of a committed relationship.
Yes, exactly.
You are establishing the ultimate goalposts from step one. And it's not just what they say, it's how they are meeting. The era of the high-stakes, 3-hour dinner date seems to be completely dead.
It has been largely replaced by what is termed micro-dating.
Right. Microdating.
Mhm.
Instead of putting on a suit or a dress, spending $100 on a 3-course meal, and being trapped at a table with a stranger for an entire evening.
It's just terrifying.
It really is. People are opting for extremely low-stakes, 30-minute interactions, a quick coffee,
Yeah.
a walk in the park.
Yes. And microdating serves a very specific psychological function.
Oh, really?
It limits financial and temporal strain, yes, but more importantly, it serves as a rapid, real-world chemistry check.
Right.
It is the fastest way to shatter the hologram we discussed earlier.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
You get face-to-face, you see their body language, you hear their cadence, and you immediately know if the digital avatar matches the three-dimensional reality.
So you aren't wasting weeks texting a fantasy. And speaking of matching reality, there's a third trend here that goes hand in hand with hardballing and microdating, which is true casting. I love the concept behind this.
True casting is perhaps the most difficult of these trends to execute because it goes against our evolutionary instinct to present our most polished selves to potential mates.
We want to look good.
Of course, but true casting is the deliberate choice to show up as your raw, unfiltered, authentic self right out of the gate.
No more pretending you love hiking and camping if your ideal weekend actually involves staying indoors and watching documentaries.
Right.
No more pretending you're a laid-back, easygoing person if you are actually highly organized and deeply opinionated.
Yes.
And we are seeing people facilitate this authenticity using text-to-talk pipelines.
The text-to-talk pipeline is a crucial piece of digital infrastructure right now.
How does that work?
It's the practice of moving very quickly from a static text prompt to a voice note or a short, uncurated video call.
So rather than spending 3 weeks texting someone, building up that hologram, you send 3 messages and then say, hey, send me a voice note, or let's do a 5-minute video chat right now.
Exactly. It establishes a baseline of intellectual, communicative, and humor compatibility before you ever expend the energy to meet in person.
That saves so much time.
It really does. If we look closely at all of these trends, hardballing, microdating, true casting, the text-to-talk pipelines, what they all share is a profound structural drive toward creating psychological safety.
Safety from the apps.
They are all defense mechanisms against burnout.
Let's dig into that psychological safety, specifically with true casting.
Okay.
Because on the surface, revealing all your flaws and quirks immediately feels incredibly unsafe.
Yeah, it feels risky.
It feels like you're just inviting rejection. But the data suggests the opposite.
To understand why true casting provides safety, we have to look at the alternative. From a clinical perspective, one of the most exhausting aspects of modern romance is the mental load of performance dating.
The mental load of performance dating.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially keeping track of the lies, right?
Or at the very least, keeping track of the heavily sanitized, highly curated versions of yourself you've presented to various people.
Right.
In a world of infinite matches, if you are tweaking your personality to be agreeable to each individual person, you are carrying an immense cognitive burden.
I can't even imagine.
You have to remember, okay, with this person, I'm the outdoorsy adventurer. With this person, I'm the sophisticated intellectual. It requires constant, draining vigilance.
It's acting. You are putting on a one-person play every time you open the app.
Exactly. When you TrueCast, you completely eliminate that cognitive burden.
You just drop the mask.
You drop the script, you say,
Okay.
this is who I am in all my specific polarizing glory, love me or leave me.
Oh.
It acts as a highly efficient filter. Yes, you will experience more immediate rejection, but the people who stay are actually compatible with the real you, not the hologram.
And when we talk about these digital tools, the voice notes, the video pipelines, it's so important to recognize that they aren't just conveniences.
No, they're not.
For huge swaths of the population, they are absolute game changers for accessibility.
Huge game changers.
Think about the listener right now who might be deeply introverted or neurodivergent or dealing with clinical social anxiety.
For those populations, traditional dating spaces are fundamentally hostile environments.
Right. If the only way to meet someone is to go to a loud, crowded, chaotic, dimly lit bar at 10 p.m. on a Friday,
It's a nightmare.
that is an incredibly overwhelming sensory environment. It is arguably the worst possible place for someone with social anxiety to try and form a nuanced emotional connection.
Absolutely. The digital platform, when used intentionally and not as a slot machine, provides a paced, controlled space.
It gives them a buffer.
Right. Features like asynchronous voice notes allow an introverted individual to process what the other person said, formulate a thoughtful response, and communicate their true personality without the high-pressure, real-time demands of face-to-face banter in a chaotic environment.
It levels the playing field.
It completely lowers the barrier to connection for people who might otherwise opt out of the dating market entirely.
Okay, I see the value in the controlled environment. But I have to question the whole hardballing concept again.
Okay, pushback.
I want to put myself in the shoes of a listener who might be a bit of a romantic at heart.
Sure.
I hear all this about radical transparency and stating your demands up front. But doesn't hardballing totally kill the romance?
How so?
If I sit down for a 30-minute microdate, and before our coffee even arrives, my date slides a list of non-negotiable life goals across the table. That feels like a job interview.
I get that.
It feels like they are bringing a corporate resume to a first date. Doesn't this turn the organic, mysterious magic of human connection into a sterile, mechanical checklist exercise?
This raises an important question, and it's one that relationship psychologists encounter constantly.
I bet.
We have to fundamentally re-examine what we mean when we say romance. What is romance to you?
Good question.
In the context of modern media and traditional dating, romance is often conflated with the anxiety of the unknown.
The anxiety of the unknown, like the butterflies in your stomach when you don't know if they're going to call you back?
Exactly. We romanticize ambiguity.
We really do.
Traditional dating often provided massive amounts of ambiguity. You might date someone for 6 months, completely enamored with the mystery of them, carefully avoiding any heavy conversations so you don't break the spell.
Keep it light, keep it fun.
Right. But then, 6 months in, you finally talk about the future, only to discover they vehemently oppose having children, which happens to be your fundamental lifelong dream.
And suddenly, the 6 months of romance collapses.
Because it wasn't true romance. It was deferred heartbreak.
Deferred heartbreak.
Wow, the ambiguity wasn't magical, it was just a lack of information.
That's a gut punch.
Hardballing removes that destructive ambiguity early. By bringing those non-negotiables to the surface on day one, you actually protect your emotional energy.
Wow. So by being clinical up front,
Yeah,
you are actually saving your capacity for deep emotion later.
precisely. When you clear the structural deal breakers out of the way immediately, when you both confirm you want the same fundamental things out of life, you aren't turning the connection into a checklist.
Right.
You are building a foundation. You are creating a safe, secure, psychological container where true romance, vulnerability, and trust can actually flourish.
Because you aren't terrified anymore.
Right, because you are no longer burdened by the looming, terrifying anxiety of what are we doing here and are we fundamentally incompatible?
Okay, that is a brilliant way to reframe it. It's radical, upfront transparency to protect the heart.
Exactly.
But this brings us to a really tricky paradox. And it's one that the demographic research highlights beautifully.
Let's hear it.
Getting clear on your intentions and hardballing your boundaries is a fantastic strategy, but it requires one massive assumption.
Which is?
It requires that you actually know what you want.
Yes.
And according to the clinical data we are looking at, most of us, despite our confident proclamations, are completely deluded about what we actually need in a partner.
We are notoriously bad at knowing what we need.
Which leads us to perhaps the most fascinating behavioral shift of 2026, the death of the type.
Yes. This is a monumental shift.
Huge.
The behavioral sociologists are calling it the untyping revolution, or in clinical literature, it's referred to as contradating.
Untyping. Okay, let's define exactly what this looks like on the ground.
Right.
Untyping is when singles actively, intentionally, and sometimes painfully decide to break their habitual romantic patterns.
Yes.
They're flat out refusing to filter their potential matches based on rigid physical, demographic, or professional checklists.
They are consciously dismantling the preconceived template of attraction that they have carried, often for their entire adult lives.
We're talking about the complete abandonment of the classic requirements.
Throwing them out.
The woman who refuses to date anyone under 6 feet tall, she drops the height filter.
Right.
The guy who only dates women in creative fields, he goes out with an accountant.
Yes.
The person who insists their partner must have green hair, play in an indie band, and read French poetry. They decide to go on a date with a corporate lawyer who wears khakis.
It is a deliberate rejection of the aesthetic and demographic echo chamber.
And it is catching on like wildfire. This isn't just a fringe idea in psychology magazines.
Not all.
The data from a massive recent survey of nearly 6,000 active singles showed that 42% of daters, nearly half, are currently experiencing something the researchers termed curveball crushing.
Curveball crushing. It is a highly descriptive term for a very specific phenomenon.
What does it mean?
It is when you find yourself experiencing deep, undeniable, often surprising attraction to someone who exists completely outside of your usual checklist.
Right.
You look at this person, and on paper, they make zero sense based on your history, yet the connection is undeniable.
So why is this untyping trend so revolutionary? Why are psychologists championing this as a breakthrough rather than just people experimenting?
To understand why untyping is a revolution, we have to dive into the psychology of why having a type is almost always a trap.
A trap.
In popular culture, we treat having a type as an empowered expression of our desires. We say, oh, I just know what I like.
Right, like it's a sign of knowing yourself.
Exactly. But from a clinical psychoanalytic perspective, your romantic type is rarely a conscious, rational choice.
Really?
More often than not, what you call your type is actually a manifestation of a maladaptive repetition compulsion.
Maladaptive repetition compulsion. That sounds incredibly intense.
It's a mouthful, but it's very real.
Break that down for us. What does that actually mean when someone says, I just prefer bad boys, or I only like highly driven workaholics?
It means we are fundamentally drawn to what is familiar, even if what is familiar is actively causing us pain.
Wow.
The human brain prioritizes predictability over happiness.
Wait, really?
Let me say that again. The brain prefers a predictable negative outcome over an unpredictable positive outcome.
That is deeply flawed.
It's survival wiring. Our types are frequently rooted in past attachment wounds or familiar dysfunctional dynamics from our childhood or our earliest formative relationships.
So it's about trying to resolve old trauma.
Exactly. If you grew up in a chaotic, emotionally volatile environment where love was unpredictable, your nervous system learned to associate anxiety with connection.
Okay.
As an adult, you might subconsciously seek out unpredictable, chaotic partners because that dynamic feels like home.
It's comfortable.
Right. When a chaotic partner ignores your texts or creates drama, your nervous system goes into overdrive. And the tragic part is you interpret that anxiety, that knot in your stomach, as butterflies.
Oh, my God.
You interpret the chaos as passion.
Oh, wow. So when we think we're just passionately pursuing our type, we're actually just hitting replay on our own historical trauma. We are seeking out the exact environment that hurt us, hoping that this time we can control the outcome.
Precisely. And this is why contradating or untyping is not just a dating trend, it is a clinical intervention.
An intervention.
By intentionally forcing yourself to engage with potential partners who fall completely outside your historical aesthetic or demographic tropes, you bypass your own psychological defense mechanisms.
You short-circuit the loop.
Yes. You disrupt the algorithmic echo chambers, both the digital algorithms on your phone and the neurological algorithms in your brain that constantly reinforce your biases.
Okay, I hear the clinical logic.
Good.
But I have to aggressively challenge this on behalf of anyone listening right now who might feel a bit cynical.
Please do.
Because I can hear the pushback forming in the listener's mind.
Let's hear it.
When I hear sociologists, the relationship experts, telling people to ditch their type and date outside their physical preferences,
Mm.
isn't untyping just a really polite academic term for lowering your standards?
Oh.
Is this just the dating industry telling us to settle because the modern dating pool is so broken and exhausted? Like,
Mhm.
hey, you can't find what you want, so just accept less.
What's fascinating here is that the resistance you're expressing is the exact barrier most people face.
Because it feels like giving up.
It does, but the modern relationship psychology framework draws a very firm, clinical, and vital line between two concepts that we constantly conflate in our culture:
Which are,
preferences and standards.
okay, let's unpack that. I need a clear definition here.
Right.
If I say I want someone who goes to the gym 5 days a week, is that a preference or a standard? How does the literature separate these two?
Let's start with preferences. Preferences are flexible, superficial, and logistical traits.
Okay.
They include things like physical height, hair color, a specific occupation, income bracket, fashion sense, or whether they like indie music or sports.
So the gym habit would be a preference.
Exactly. These things often dictate initial visual or logistical attraction. They're the things we filter for on apps.
Right.
But longitudinal studies on relationship satisfaction show that these preferences bear almost absolutely zero weight on long-term relationship success, marital happiness, or divorce rates.
Right. To put it bluntly, you aren't going to get divorced 10 years down the line because your husband prefers hiking and you prefer going to art museums.
Exactly.
That's a preference conflict, not a fatal flaw.
Precisely. Standards, conversely, are your non-negotiable character traits. These are the structural pillars of a human being.
Like what?
Integrity, emotional maturity, how they handle conflict, kindness, a high emotional intelligence, shared core life values, and mutual respect.
How they treat a waiter when their food is late.
Yes.
How they handle it when you are sick.
Yes. Those are standards.
Okay, I see the difference.
So, to answer your question, untyping is absolutely not about lowering your standards. It is actually about radically raising them.
Raising them by dropping the preferences.
By deliberately discarding superficial preferences, you create the structural room required for individuals who actually meet your high standards to step forward.
That's a massive paradigm shift.
It changes everything.
Because let's play this out mathematically. If you filter out 90% of the dating pool right off the bat, simply because they don't meet your arbitrary 6-foot height preference, or because they aren't a doctor or lawyer,
Which many people do.
you are almost certainly filtering out thousands of people who possess the exact emotional maturity, kindness, and communication skills you are desperately searching for.
You are self-sabotaging.
Focusing obsessively on the checklist literally blinds you to real compatibility. You are guarding the door against the very thing you want.
It does. Sticking to a rigid preference is a psychological shield. It's a way to protect yourself from the vulnerability of the unknown. But the cost of that protection is that it keeps you trapped in the familiar, maladaptive loops of your past.
Which shifts our conversation perfectly to what happens when you actually drop the shield.
Yes, let's look at that.
Let's look at the tangible, real-world experience of curveball crushing. If a listener decides today to drop their preferences and go on a date with a curveball, what actually happens to their brain?
It's quite profound.
Our research details 4 highly specific and frankly unexpected psychological benefits of dating someone who is completely not your type. Let's walk through them.
Okay. The first major psychological benefit is the ability to finally distinguish wants versus needs.
Wants versus needs.
This is critical. When you date a curveball, you often undergo a period of cognitive dissonance. You might discover that the qualities you always thought you wanted, say you always chased an incredibly outgoing, life of the party, charismatic partner, aren't actually what you need to feel secure.
Oh, because you realize the life of the party partner always left you feeling anxious and ignored in social settings.
Exactly. You were chasing a want, but neglecting a need.
Wow.
And by dating someone outside that type, you might suddenly realize you actually need the grounded, calm, steady connection of someone who is naturally introverted, who sits beside you and actively listens to you.
You separate the culturally programmed desire from your actual psychological necessity.
Yes.
That leads right into the second benefit, which is profound self-discovery.
The self-discovery is huge here.
When you date within your type, you are basically acting in a play you've performed 100 times. You know your lines. You know the dynamic. You know exactly what role you play with your usual type.
You are running a familiar script.
Right. But when you step outside your norm and sit across from a curveball, that script is suddenly useless. The dynamic is completely foreign.
You have to improvise.
And because your standard inhibitions and defensive postures are lowered, Because you don't know the rules of this new interaction, you often discover latent parts of your own personality.
It's so true.
You get exposed to completely new viewpoints, new hobbies, new frameworks for looking at the world that you would have never encountered in your echo chamber.
Which naturally facilitates the third benefit,
Which is,
cognitive and dating flexibility.
okay,
This is about neuroplasticity. Even if the relationship with the curveball doesn't work out, even if it doesn't end in a 50-year marriage, the mere practice of untyping reprograms your internal software.
it rewires you.
It physically rewires how you perceive potential partners. You build an open approach to future potential, and you begin to see profound value in a much wider variety of human experiences and aesthetics.
I was trying to think of a way to visualize this flexibility, and I kept coming back to ice cream.
I love food analogies.
Let's call it the ice cream paradox. I want the listener to picture their favorite ice cream shop. Most of us have one, maybe two favorite flavors.
Sure.
Let's say you always get mint chocolate chip. Every single time. You've had it for 10 years.
Classic.
Trying a new flavor feels like an unnecessary risk. You're spending money. What if you don't like the pistachio? What if the mango's too sweet?
Right, why mess with a good thing?
So you stick to the mint to guarantee a baseline level of satisfaction. But if you never take the risk to try the pistachio, you might go your entire life never realizing that there is a flavor out there you actually enjoy 10 times more than your default mint.
That's a great way to frame it.
And we are doing this with human beings.
We really are. It's a highly illustrative analogy for the repetition compulsion we discussed. We choose the familiar flavor because the predictability feels safe, even if the flavor itself has become deeply unsatisfying or even detrimental to our health over time.
Which brings us to the fourth and perhaps most difficult benefit for our modern dopamine-fried attention spans.
Yes.
The organic growth of attraction. The behavioral researchers have actually cataloged a new slang term for this among Gen Z and younger millennials.
Oh, this is my favorite term in the study.
Chemistry.
Yes, chemistry is a brilliant linguistic evolution.
Explain it for us.
It's a portmanteau of chemistry and riz, which is slang for charisma or charm. But the behavioral definition is what really matters.
Right.
Chemistry is the conscious decision to give a new connection 3 to 5 dates to allow a person's authentic charisma to naturally emerge, rather than expecting an instant fireworks display on date 1.
Which is so much pressure.
It's a structural acknowledgement of reality. Social anxiety is incredibly high right now. The pressure of modern dating is crushing.
It is.
Almost nobody presents their most authentic, charming, relaxed self on a high-pressure, high-stakes first date while drinking a $12 coffee and wondering if they're being judged.
They are presenting a guarded, hyper-vigilant version of themselves.
Exactly.
Exactly. I want to relate this dynamic directly to you, the listener. Think about the immediate dopamine-fueled spark of a first date. Our entire culture tells us to chase the spark.
Chasing the spark is the core directive of rom-coms.
If there's no spark, throw them back.
Yeah.
But what is that spark chemically? It's basically a fleeting sugar rush.
It is.
It spikes your neurochemical blood sugar, you feel elated, and then almost inevitably, you crash.
You always crack.
Organic growth, the slow burn of chemistry, is not a sugar rush. It's like a slow-cooked meal.
I love that.
It takes time, it takes patience, it requires simmering, but it provides a complex flavor that sustains you much, much longer.
It's nourishing.
But here is the major roadblock, and I want to pose this to you as our expert. How do we actually reprogram our brains to be patient enough for those 3 to 5 dates?
It's very, very hard.
When the app is literally buzzing in our pocket, constantly offering a new immediate sugar rush, how do we sit through the slow simmer?
It is the ultimate modern challenge, and it requires a conscious, strenuous cognitive override.
You have to force it.
You do. You have to actively interrogate your own physical reactions. You have to recognize that what you historically labeled as the spark is very often just your anxiety and your core attachment wounds being triggered by a familiar maladaptive dynamic.
Wait, so the spark is actually a warning sign?
Frequently, yes.
That is wild.
The spark is your nervous system recognizing danger and preparing for the roller coaster.
Wow.
So when you sit across from a curveball and you feel a distinct lack of an immediate spark, you have to override your impulse to flee.
Don't run away.
Right. Instead of seeing that lack of chaos as a lack of chemistry, you must intentionally reframe it as a feeling of safety and peace.
Okay.
And here's the hardest truth for many people to accept. Peace often feels incredibly boring to a nervous system that has become addicted to chaos.
Let me just pause on that. Peace feels boring to a nervous system addicted to chaos.
It's true.
That is the entire problem of modern romance distilled into a single sentence.
It really is. Your brain says, this person isn't making me anxious, therefore I must not be attracted to them.
We confuse anxiety for attraction.
All the time. By committing rigidly to the 3 to 5 date rule, you force a delay.
You give it time to breathe.
You give your dysregulated nervous system the time it needs to regulate, to lower the cortisol, and to actually perceive the other person's true character, rather than just reacting to the presence or absence of immediate anxiety.
It's like detoxing from digital sugar.
Yes.
And what's truly amazing, what takes this entire conversation to the next level, is that this newfound flexibility, this untyping, this embracing of the curveball, isn't just a self-help strategy changing individual lives on a micro level.
No, it's scaling up.
When you apply the specific behavioral shift at scale across hundreds of millions of users on digital networks, it ceases to be psychology and becomes sociology.
Yes.
It is literally, mathematically reshaping the demographic makeup of human civilization.
This is exactly where the lens shifts from the individual brain to the macro sociological perspective. And the demographic data we are seeing right now is nothing short of breathtaking.
It genuinely altered how I view the technology.
Me too.
To understand the magnitude of what the apps are doing to society, we have to look backward. We have to look at how traditional dating functioned prior to the popularization of the smartphone in the early 2010s.
Okay.
For the vast majority of human history, up until about 15 years ago, your dating pool was severely restricted to what sociologists call a 6-block radius.
A 6-block radius, it's so small.
You were physically bound by geography, your workplace, your religious institution, or your immediate familial and friendship circles.
Right.
Think about the 1950s or even the 1990s. You married someone from your hometown?
Or the next town over.
You married the person sitting in the cubicle next to you. You married your college lab partner or someone your best friend introduced you to at a house party?
Very localized.
Now, contrast that extreme physical limitation with the modern digital ecosystem. Dating apps have fundamentally bypassed those traditional geographical and social barriers.
They've destroyed them.
We are looking at network theory data that tracks the strength of what mathematicians call absent ties in social networks.
Yes, absent ties. To clarify network theory for a moment.
Please do.
Imagine society as a series of isolated islands. Island A has its own culture, socioeconomic status, and demographics, and people on Island A only marry other people on Island A.
Right, they stick to their own.
Island B does the exact same. They are clustered. An absent tie is a completely new bridge built between someone on Island A and someone on Island B who would never, ever cross paths in the physical world.
And the digital apps are building millions of these bridges every single day.
Millions of them.
The numbers on the outcome of this are undeniable. Sociological tracking shows that online couples who have met since 1996 are 6 to 7% more likely to be an interracial couple than those who met through traditional offline methods.
That's a significant jump.
And when you look at specific, historically marginalized or isolated demographics, the shift is even more pronounced and rapid.
The data on this is incredible.
For Black Americans, the rate of interracial marriage hovered at a very low baseline for decades. But it jumped from 5% in 1980 to 18% in 2015.
Which is a massive acceleration.
And what blew my mind is that the sociologists and data scientists were able to map these massive, unprecedented spikes in diversity directly to the launch dates of major dating platforms.
The correlation is direct.
It's not a gradual cultural slope. There's a distinct, measurable spike in the data aligning with the launch of Match.com in 1995.
Right.
There's another major jump corresponding with the rise of OkCupid in the mid-2000s. And there is an absolutely massive vertical leap corresponding directly to Tinder's popularization and the gamification of swiping around 2012 to 2014.
This completely upends the common narrative.
How so?
Well, dating algorithms are almost universally criticized in the media for creating echo chambers.
Right, we hear that all the time.
We hear constantly that they reinforce our biases by showing us people who look exactly like us. But macro-sociologically, the exact opposite is happening.
The opposite.
The algorithms are actively breaking down highly insular, socioeconomic, racial, cultural, and geographical bubbles.
Because of those absent ties bridging the island.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, in network theory mathematics, a fractured society integrates incredibly rapidly when you introduce just a small percentage of new absent ties.
Doesn't take much.
No. When a few interracial or cross-cultural couples form via an app, they don't just connect two individuals. They function as massive sociological bridges between entirely different worlds.
Oh, because they bring their networks with them.
Exactly. When they marry, their families meet, their friend groups integrate, they merge their social capital. Just a 5% increase in these cross-pollinating relationships rapidly integrates the entire societal network at an exponential rate.
I had a total light bulb moment reading this data,
Yeah.
specifically regarding the classic Hollywood meet cute.
Oh, I'm curious.
Because our culture completely romanticizes the analog meet cute. We love the idea of bumping into a beautiful stranger at the local independent bookstore, dropping our books, locking eyes as we pick them up, and falling in love.
Everyone wants that story.
We view that as the pinnacle of organic romance. But if you really think about the mechanics of that scenario, it inherently restricted us to our own highly curated socioeconomic and geographic bubbles.
The bookstore meet cute is geographically deterministic.
Exactly. The people in that specific independent bookstore, in that specific neighborhood, almost certainly look like you. They likely have the same level of education as you, and they probably live in the exact same tax bracket as you.
It's a bubble.
It feels like destiny, but it's
Mhm.
actually just demographic sorting. The app, ironically, with all of its cold, gamified digital interfaces, is far more democratic.
It is.
It introduces you to the accountant 3 towns over, from a completely different cultural background, who you never, ever would have crossed paths with in your physical routine.
It is the ultimate democratizer of romance.
It's wild to think about.
By completely removing the traditional gatekeepers, our immediate physical social circles, our parents' networks, our local geography, the digital ecosystem allows for a level of demographic cross-pollination that is completely historically unprecedented.
And it is fundamentally rewriting the genetic and cultural future of humanity.
It really is.
It's incredible to pull back and think about the fact that the little annoying app buzzing in your pocket, the one giving you swipe fatigue, is simultaneously altering global demographics.
The duality of it is amazing.
But having looked at that massive macro-level integration, I want to bring the conversation back down to earth.
Okay, let's zoom back in.
Back to the micro-level behaviors that are defining the modern 2026 dating scene for the individual listener.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up our analysis by looking at the final 2 terms in our 2026 dating lexicon.
Yes.
Because they perfectly summarize how people are trying to balance the chaos with safety.
The massive behavioral surveys we reviewed highlighted 2 major, seemingly contradictory behavioral shifts that encapsulate everything we've discussed today.
What are they?
The first is a concept called love luring, and the second is status flexing.
Let's start with love luring. I absolutely love the origin of this term.
It's very modern.
It's currently being embraced by roughly 37% of active daters. Lore comes from gaming and fandom culture. It's the backstory, the world building, the legend of a character.
Right.
Love luring is essentially dating for the plot. It is making the conscious decision to go out with someone completely outside your type just to see where the story leads, without the crushing, heavy expectation of finding the one by the time dessert arrives.
Which is so healthy. Love luring represents a vital psychological return to playfulness, curiosity, and low-stakes exploration.
It lowers the temperature.
It is a direct behavioral antidote to the pressure cooker mentality of hardballing gone wrong.
Right, because if hardballing goes too far.
If hardballing becomes too rigid, it becomes a sterile interview.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Love luring allows daters to intentionally reduce the stakes and approach a human being as a fascinating narrative to be discovered, rather than a corporate checklist to be audited.
It's treating the date as an experience rather than an evaluation.
Exactly.
But then, right alongside that desire for plot and adventure, you have the rise of status flexing. And it's important to note, this isn't about flexing your wealth or showing off your expensive car or your job title on social media.
No, it's not that kind of status.
It's about relationship status.
Mhm.
It is the absolute unified rejection of the ambiguous, ill-defined situationship.
Yes. The situationship being the dynamic where 2 people act like partners in private, but refuse to define the relationship or offer any commitment in public.
It's cowardly, and daters are sick of it.
They're done with it.
They are flexing their right to a defined relationship status. They are demanding clearly defined boundaries, titles, and emotional security. They want to know exactly what they are to the other person.
When you look at these 2 concepts side by side, love luring and status flexing, you see the brilliant, nuanced complexity of the modern dater.
It seems contradictory, though.
It's not a contradiction, it's a dual strategy.
Okay.
Love luring is the pursuit of adventure, narrative, and cognitive flexibility. Status flexing represents the deep, natural, psychological desire for security and structural safety.
So what does this all mean? We want the wild story, but we want a safe place to read it.
Exactly. You have to contextualize this within the broader world of 2026.
True.
We are living in a world characterized by extreme economic volatility, political polarization, and social uncertainty. People are exhausted by unpredictability in their public lives.
Everyone is stressed out.
Therefore, they are absolutely refusing to let their intimate, private relationships be yet another source of instability and anxiety.
That makes perfect sense. So modern daters are demanding a highly sophisticated balance.
They are.
They're demanding both radical adventure and radical safety. They want the intellectual curiosity to explore a connection with someone completely outside their traditional type, but they want the structural security of knowing exactly where they stand while they do it.
They refuse to be holograms, and they refuse to be ghosted.
It ultimately means that despite the deeply cynical cultural headlines, despite the very real neurobiological realities of app fatigue, and despite the endless complaints of a broken digital system,
Yes.
the fundamental human drive for deep, authentic, vulnerable connection remains completely unchanged.
We haven't lost our desire or our capacity for romance. We have simply been forced to evolve our toolkit to be more intentional, more psychologically self-aware, and ultimately more resilient.
I think that is the absolute perfect place to land the plane today.
It's been a great discussion.
I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second as we wrap this up. We have covered a massive amount of conceptual ground today.
We really have.
We've gone from the dopamine loops and intermittent reinforcement of the slot machine swipe to the protective power of hardballing and true casting,
To the clinical necessity of untyping.
all the way up to the socio-demographic revolution mathematically reshaping our cities. But the core takeaway here is deeply, intimately personal to your daily life.
Yes.
Those digital tools sitting in your pocket right now, the apps that you might feel utterly exhausted by, the ones that trigger your abandonment schemas and make you want to throw your phone at the wall, they aren't inherently your enemy.
They're just infrastructure.
Exactly. When you use them with radical intentionality, when you stop treating them like a slot machine and start treating them like a tool for breaking your own boundaries, they are incredibly empowering.
They give you agency.
They give you the agency to demand better, clearer communication up front. They give you the unprecedented power to bypass the limitations of your physical geographic bubble.
The 6-block radius.
Right. And most importantly, they give you the opportunity to discover deep, organic, slow-burning chemistry, the chemistry, with incredible people who fall completely outside the arbitrary type you've been chasing for years.
It's a hopeful message.
But I want to leave you with a final thought today. Something for you to chew on that goes far beyond just your dating profile or your romantic life.
Okay.
We've established that our romantic types are very often just comfortable, unconscious habits that mask our actual deeper needs. They are rigid filters keeping us from growth.
They are.
So my question for you is, what other rigid checklists in your life are holding you back?
Oh, that's a good question.
Whether it's in your career trajectory, are you only pursuing a specific job title because it's your type of career, even though it makes you miserable?
Right.
What about your friendships? Are you only surrounding yourself with people who echo your exact worldviews? What rigid, comfortable expectations in your daily life are actually acting as walls, keeping you from finding the chaotic, beautiful, unfamiliar things that you truly need to grow?
Food for thought.
Keep questioning your assumptions. Don't be afraid to drop the script. Keep trying the new flavor of ice cream, and please, don't be afraid of the curveballs. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Welcome to Speed Mingle.
Where making real connections happens in
Stream,
seconds.
swipe, socialize, your ultimate connection network.
Jump in now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Speed Mingle Network.